What's going on YouTube? OCD for EDC here, and what I got for your face balls today is a little smoke. What'd you think about that video work there? Moving on up. So anyway, guys, I'm an idiot. Uh, what we're taking a look at here today is the Booz Blade Smoke. Definitely a knife that I was super excited to get my hands on. This is not my knife. This came from one of my viewers. His name is David, and he goes by DLBY3 on Instagram. You guys should absolutely go give him a follow. He's got some beautiful knives and does some good pictures and stuff. So check him out on Instagram. Go give him a follow. DLBY3. I'll throw a link up in there, or his username up in the description, so you guys can give him a follow. But he was generous enough to let me take a look at this beautiful Booz Blade Smoke, and I'm thankful for it because this is a knife that I really liked, and I never had gotten a chance to handle one. So yeah, pretty cool knife. So anyway, we'll just jump right into it here. We'll do a few size comparisons. Let's see here. Let's start with this. So here it is against the Spyderco Manix 2 and the Spyderco Para 3 Lightweight. So you can see we're not talking about a small knife, that's for sure. And here it is against the Benchmade Super Freak and the Benchmade Bug Out. So like I said, you know, it's slender in its dimensions, but except for one, the length of it is a pretty good sized knife. So let's get this stuff out of the way. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at an overall length of 8 inches. You got a handle length of 4.525, and you've got a blade length of 3.475. So this comes in just under 3.5 inches. So if you live in an area where that's important to you, this is definitely under that mark. You got a handle thickness just under a half of an inch. It's 450 thousandths, and a blade stock thickness of 155 thousandths. Handle height. It ranges from anywhere around 5/8 of an inch here, and it goes up to a little over 7/8, almost 15/16 back here. And you know, so it's a pretty slender handle, and then you have about 7/8 of an inch in blade height. So you know, pretty slender knife, but the ergos on this thing work pretty well. Even though it is very slender, it you know, it feels secure in hand. You've got some meaningful jimping up here on the spine of the blade here, and yeah, you know, it's pretty neutral in grip. It does have some contouring here, but it's very minimal, and so it's pretty neutral. I think this will be pretty comfortable for most people, even people like me that have huge hands. So this is a knife that I really wanted to check out. Will Booz is the designer of this knife, and this knife here was manufactured by Wiha Knife Company out of China. And Will Booz is a knife designer that is from the Kansas City area, and that happens to be an area, although I don't live in Kansas City, I do work there quite often, and so I'm super familiar with the area, and I like to see, you know, people from the Midwest designing knives. So you know, we have people like Booz, as well as Joe and Angie Holt with the Holt Spectre. It's a beautiful knife, and yeah, so you know, some pretty good representation out of the Midwest, which is cool to see. So this guy here is obviously rocking carbon fiber show side scale, and it is, I can't remember if they have a name, if they call this aspirated or something, but you know, there's some high speed low drag holes there, and then you've got this lanyard hole on the back. There is some functional traction, or you know, I don't know that you necessarily call that jimping because they're very widely spaced, but certainly provides some traction here on this back spacer. And then you've got these 3 lines here on the pocket clip, which work very well for a little traction to pull it out of the pocket. Pocket clip is really good on this guy, goes in and out of the pocket extremely well. You've got enough clearance underneath the clip for most pant material, and the retention's good. So yeah, I don't, other than it being, you know, it's not super deep carry, so it's going to be something like this sticking out. Other than that, you know, it's fine. Blade centering is perfect. action. It's riding on bearings, so you know it's Wiha action, and it is a titanium frame lock. You do have a hardened steel insert, and I don't know if this is riding on what type of bearings, but we're going to find out. So we'll take a look inside this guy. And yeah, you know, the front flipper on this, the geometry is done extremely well because this front flipper sticks so far above the center line of the pivot. It lends itself well to get it to flip out. So for anyone out there that has maybe had a bad experience with the front flipper, just struggling to do it, this one is a good one. So if you can get your hands on a booze blade smoke, hopefully they're going to become more readily available. I know they had a mini that just or will be releasing here soon, or maybe already has, depending on when I post this video. But you know, I think the smoke was going to be delivering like fall of 2019. So yeah, personally, I mean, I haven't handled the mini. I don't think I would want this to be any smaller than what it is. You know, it is a long knife, but it's pretty small in every other way. And for me, for my hands, you know, it's not overly large, that's for sure. I have heard people refer to this as kind of being like a steak knife, and it certainly has that type of blade shape. I actually do have another knife here that's very similar in design and style. It's not a front flipper, but this here is the Harns Assassin. It's a budget knife, and you can see, you know, very, very similar in kind of overall footprint. Although the Harns is a much larger knife, very, very similar in design and blade shape. So anybody's interested in picking this guy up, I posted a video of it a little while ago, and it's a budget knife, like I said. Riding on bearings, really, really nicely done knife. It's rocking 14C28N blade steel. Action is spectacular. So you want to pick up a cool little budget knife, the Harns Assassin's pretty cool one. So anyway, back to the really cool one. This one here is rocking, let me see, hopefully my camera will focus. Come on, there we go. So M390 blade steel, and then of course the standard logo from Will Booze. And if I remember correctly, I think I've heard that he's real into dogs, and I think a lot of, and maybe even Boo was one of his dog's names or something. I may be totally off base on that one, but I'm pretty sure he named some of these knives after his dogs, which is cool. I certainly am an animal lover, so I can respect that. The opening hole here on the blade, I have seen several people use it to like Spidey flick, and I can do it, but it's not super easy to get my fat ass fingers in there. So if you have larger fingers, that's probably not going to be your preferred method. You know, I'm sure if you have like longer fingernails or something and you can get it in there easy, it does work. The D10 on this guy is totally adequate for the knife, but it's not crazy strong, so it's, you know, it's relatively easy to get it to deploy, and the flipping action is really reliable. You know, I don't know, I haven't carried this thing a ton, but I did carry it a little bit, and yeah, it's a joy to carry. You know, in the pocket it's great, goes in and out of the pocket well. It's very small and slender, so yeah, it's a really great knife. It's Wiha quality, riding on bearings, and it's a good design, so there's really not much to dislike here. Behind the edge thickness, not the absolute sliciest thing ever, but it is relatively thin behind the edge. You're looking at about 18 thousandths, pretty much all the way across. It's got some pretty decent distal taper on the blade, so it doesn't thicken up much, so you don't have a really, really robust tip, but you know, I don't imagine anybody's going to be going out and trying to bushcraft with this guy, so you know, it's going to work well for your standard EDC kind of tasks, and it's a good looking knife. So anyway, let's get a weight on this guy real quick. So you're looking at, you know, just under 3.5 inches of blade and 2.38 ounces, so call it 2.39, or you know, just under 2.4. yeah, really nice, small, lightweight, compact, and 3.5 inch blade. So pretty pretty cool design. So anyway, let's jump into this guy here. So we are looking at a T8 pivot screw, and the pivot is captured. Let me show you here. So on the show side, you do have this kind of triangulated shape, and it is recessed into the carbon. So you do have a non-spinning pivot, which is a beautiful thing. And then these body screws are T6. So, do I like T8s better? Of course. But on something like this, it's not the end of any worlds. Just, if you are going to disassemble, just be careful and make sure your driver's straight and all that sort of stuff. People tell me all the time that they strip screws, and it really just takes a little bit of wherewithal, and just pay attention to what you're doing, and then you don't have to worry about stripping screws. So anyway, we can talk about that in a later video. But you can see here you do have an internal blade stop pin and track there. You do have a steel washer, if the camera would focus, and what appears to be a ceramic detent ball and over travel stop. Come on. Good Lord. Technology's great when it works. So anyway, nicely done. And you got hidden hardware there on the pocket clip, which is pretty cool. So just a nice touch. And looks like we're riding on ceramic bearings here. And you do have bronze cages for the bearings, which is nice. Do not have a detent ramp. Not a huge thing on this particular knife. The action on this guy's really well done. And then, yeah, nice. So you can see here, I'll get that washer off there. You can see here that you have that steel washer that sits down into the carbon, and I like the fact that they milled out that area 1. It provides a hardened steel spots for the stop pin to hit, which is really fantastic and nicely done. And it also keeps that from rotating. So that's nice. It's made for longevity, which is great. And sometimes the stop pins will just be hitting titanium on one side and carbon on the other, but they took that into account and made that a little nicer, so that's cool. I'm always happy to see attention to detail and just going the extra step. So really, guys, the disassembly here is just super straightforward. There's really not much going on. It's just a simple, really well made pocket knife, which is fantastic. So it's what we want to see, right? Just something simple and really well done, which is awesome. So get this back together here. So I really want to thank David for letting me take a look at this guy. Super cool knife. I've really enjoyed spending a little bit of time with it, and yeah, just Will Booz did a fantastic job designing this guy. The geometry on the flipper tab is really well done. It's one of the nicer front flippers that I've handled. And there's some good ones out there, but there's also some that just don't flip very well. They're just a little harder to overcome the detent, and you have to contort your hand in a weird position or try to hold on to the knife in a weird way or something. And those, I feel like I've heard people kind of sour on front flippers because their first and only experience is one that just doesn't have good geometry, which is too bad because there are definitely some good ones out there. So we're a little tight on the pivot here. Back that off just a little tiny bit. So action is spectacular. Yep. Beautiful. no blade play. Lock up on this guy is about, you know, I don't know, 30-35%. And we are once again right down Broadway. Beautiful. So yeah, guys, Booze Blade Smoke. It's a cool little knife. I definitely recommend it. Oh, if I didn't say earlier, price on these guys, if you can find them at a retailer, I think they're all sold out. I could be wrong, but they're 220 bucks, I think, for this carbon fiber model. And they do have some special colors. I know Blade HQ ran some. I think they were all carbon, but then you had some different anodized coloring on the lock bar side. You do have the stonewash finish, which I don't think I said earlier, but it's really nicely done, as well as on the blade. So yeah, just a really great, well designed, well made EDC knife, which is wonderful. So yeah, guys, check out the links in the description. I do have a bunch of links down there for all sorts of different kinds of gear and such. If any of that interests you, I greatly appreciate it. It helps support my channel, and you get some sweet gear, so it's kind of a win-win. So anyway, guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we will catch you next time.